Yeah, so a lot of
Hmm.
those little dogs cannot have their own litters. They can't birth them out their canals. The puppies don't fit. So English bulldogs are notorious for this. They just about all of them have to be C-sectioned out. So that's an expensive process. So if you're if you're looking for a dog and the dog is pricey, there might be some of that involved as well. A dog should be expensive. I'm going to go on a soapbox here for a minute. There's this whole there's this whole industry. It has become an industry of dogs and dog rescues. I run one myself, so I'm not speaking of this from ignorance, right? In a perfect world, there would be no backyard breeders. There would be no shelter rescues, none of that. If Adam was king for a day, the shelter dogs would have a home, their shelter, whatever. They would have all the interaction they needed for their life, but we would stop adopting those dogs out. Why? Because the dogs that wind up in shelters, by and large, are your problem dogs. So it takes somebody who's an active person and understands dog psychology, rehabilitation, that kind of thing, to work with those dogs and to get them normal for civilian world, right, or for society. You A lot of people are against breeders. If you have a breeder, if you go to a dog breed, a legit dog breeder that knows what they're doing and they're doing it the right way, they should have as many questions, if not more, for you than you do for them. There should be a contract saying something like, if you ever give up on this dog, you give him back to us. You don't take him to the shelter or give him to anybody else. They should want to come see your place or have you take pictures of your place and bring it to them and they can kind of look over it, right? They should ask you your dog experience. They should ask you a whole bunch of things, right? If you show up to a breeder and they're like, yeah, it's $1,000 for this dog. Do you want the dog? And that's really all they have. That's not a good breeder. That's a backyard breeder. And those people breed problem dogs because they don't know what they're doing. If you're buying a very expensive dog, that person is, I mean, the reason I say dogs should be expensive is if you're doing it the right way, it's going to be expensive. Vets cost money. If you're certifying their, let's say you're certifying their hips, you're certifying their elbows, you're certifying their health. There's a lot of dogs that have breeds that have heart problems or eye problems, knee and elbow joint problems, and that stuff can get certified at a young age from a vet. Especially your joint issues, they can tell whether or not the joint is malformed through an X-ray, let's say, right? So hip dysplasia, we talk about with German Shepherds, we talk about hip dysplasia a lot. That hip dysplasia comes from backyard breeders. That's how it gets into the system, is people not breeding for the proper things, right? So just because I have a dog and he's a good dog does not mean I should breed him. There's so much more that goes into that. In all honesty, maybe at best 3 to 5% of dogs should ever be bred, because you have to have the right temperament, you have to have the right size, you have to have the right health, you have to have the right joint stuff, you have to have so many things that go into it, right? Breed characteristics. But a lot of people, and I've, again, when I was stupid and young and ignorant, I did it myself. But a lot of people breed a dog because they have a dog and he's a good specimen. They think he's a well behaved dog or whatever, right? She is a well behaved dog. They're a good physical representation of the breed. And they go, he listens to me when I talk to him. He's not aggressive and he looks right. So this is the right dog. I should breed this dog and make some money. Most breeders don't make any money at the end of the day because of all the other expenses and time that's involved in it. And research. They spend buku hours on research. So you should have a whole bunch of questions for your breeder when you go there. And your breeder should have a whole bunch of questions and a contract for you. It should be a relationship, not just a transaction. If the person you go to is just, if the meeting feels like it's transactional in nature, it's a monetary thing, then that is not a good breeder, and you're risking some serious problems by taking those dogs. Now, the reason I said if Adam was king for a day, that's the way we would do it. Eventually, the bad dogs would die off, I guess, because they'll live their life. I'm not saying euthanize them. Do like I'm doing, where you give them a home. It's their last home that they'll ever have. But don't breed those dogs and don't compound the problem. The biggest problem we have with dogs, especially when they become mentally unstable, is bad ownership and bad breeding. So there's my soapbox moment. It's, dog breeders are not evil people. They're great people that know, the ones that know what they're doing and that do it right. They're awesome people, and they're a huge asset to society that is often overlooked.
Wow, I had no idea. Yeah, that makes more sense now, the prices that they charge. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of those. So one of the things, he said, eclectic background. One of the things I used to do as a corrections officer, and a lot of people don't realize this, but 95% of all crimes, violent crimes, are committed by the same 5% of people. It's a revolving door. People get out, they commit crime, they come back in, right? We don't rehabilitate anybody anymore. Dogs are a lot the same way. Dogs in shelters. They get out, the person decides they can't handle them, they go back in. They get adopted again, they get out, the person can't handle them, they go back in. The shelters become a revolving door as well. Not obviously to the same extent, but they do.
I don't really want to get a rescue dog now. Save some money.
Yeah, you can save some money, right? The I used to charge when I was going around to people's homes, and if I'm going to do it now, I'll do it as well. But I charge $50 an hour. My first meeting with you is 4 hours long. It's not a cheap investment, right? Now I would probably charge more. That was 10 years ago or whatever. That I was 5 years ago maybe. So part of that is because I did aggression and aggression rehab. So if I'm going to risk getting bit, you're going to be paying me for it, right? So there's that. There's also the fact that backyard breeding dogs tend to have a lot higher vet bills. So now you're paying for a trainer, you're paying more for a vet than you would otherwise. There's medications. A lot of these backyard breeding dogs backyard bred dogs, whatever, these rescue dogs have allergy issues. Sometimes that's can be a breed characteristic. Golden retrievers are notorious for having allergies, so are labs. But nobody really knows where it comes from, right? In my humble and uneducated opinion, a lot of that came from backyard breeding as well. There's no correlation. There's no other correlation that I can think of where significant allergies would come into play without us breeding the wrong dogs. Which, by the way, allergies is another thing that good breeders have to think about.